Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. This is Isaac and my friend Bruno for the Puzzle Podcast. This is the first episode of what I call season three, although I know Bruno numbers them differently. And today's question is one that will annoy many people who are engaged in development, especially those in management. And the question is, can we get it right the first time? Some people might have heard first time right for different things. When it comes to development, can we get it right the first time?
Hey, it's a very good question, Isaac. And what I would like to open with is actually a little bit of history behind it, because as industrial engineer, quality and quality movement is something that I personally was very, very interested in. And if you look, a lot of these concepts that were later, I don't want to say appropriated, but disseminated in the software development and product development world, they came from the quality movement, but became detached from the context they came from. So that's why I think it might be interesting to hear that. So at the heyday of the quality movement, everybody knows like Joseph Uran and Willem Edwards Deming. So like even today, everybody knows Deming. But a lot of other actors have almost been forgotten, and one of them is Philip Crosby. And he is the guy that came up and popularized this concept that he called it drift, do it right the first time. Now, that was just, what do you call it in English? Like a saying, just to popularize the whole movement, but it was backed by the whole system that was built on four principles, which are really interesting because back then quality was, I would say, more rigidly defined than today. So to him and to the whole do it right the first time, quality was basically conformance to requirements.
Mhm.
And we did a conversation of requirements, so that's an interesting pitch connection. And another thing that was interesting was that the measure of quality was the cost of non-conformance.
Mhm.
So the lower you had the cost of non-conformance, the higher you could say your quality was. And there were a few more principles like system of quality is prevention and performance is zero defects. But the point was that the quality movement developed in the manufacturing setup, where it made sense, where they tried to kind of minimize the cost of defects and rework. But then part of that context was lost as it moved more in what you open, like the situation where you open, like, hey, is it even possible? Is it even desirable?
Mhm.
Because in manufacturing setting, yes, it was desirable. Why would you want to produce defects and then put them back on the line and rework them? Of course, that's undesirable. But knowledge work is a little bit different. And I think what you opened, and you will correct me, is more in line with knowledge work rather than a manufacturing line work.
Yeah, the way I imagine it, the way I think about it is that the more you have to do something that is immutable or is very difficult to correct, so differently put, the higher the cost to change something, the more you need to pursue do it right the first time, which makes total sense. It's even, I mean, it's not even a big revelation. It's obvious that if I take a raw material and put through a bunch of processes on the lathe and anything else you do in a workshop, then obviously you won't do it right the first time. That's also where you hear measure twice, cut once. It's the same idea. If on the other hand you have something that is basically software, which is malleable infinitely, if you think about it, it's the most malleable thing besides ideas that we have, because software is not people. When people think of software, they think of the code, but the code is just and just, of course, I'm deliberately undermining it. It's not really that simple, but code is the end result of what you design, hopefully, and what the way you design and how you implement. So it's not physical, but the bits and the bytes on a physical hard drive, SSD, whatever. That's the final product, if you want, of a whole bunch of knowledge work processes that contain a massive degree of mutability. Therefore, now, if you have on the one hand, on the one side, you have the very immutable physical processes of manufacturing. On the other hand, you have software, not even compiled software. Take, let's say, scripting languages. Then clearly, you span the whole space of immutable to mutable. There is also something between where you have to deal with both the physical aspects. For example, you have an electronics product and the more intangible aspects like software, or you might even consider having, imagine that you have a service product. And part of the service product is also the rollout and training the people who will deliver the service product and so on. There also, the training cost or the retraining cost, the rework, is very high. Therefore, you can also maybe treat it more like do it right the first time. And yet, I struggle to say that it's that for things that are somehow mutable, that it's the right approach, because inherently, if you don't trial it, if you don't see if it works, you will at some point need to change something. The question is, how do you do it right, hopefully the first time, but don't go by hopes and prayers, but you somehow arrange your design and development process so that you can do those things right the first time that can be done and deserve to be done right the first time. For example, the concept is usually so the more fundamental something is, the more you can say, okay, we don't have a stupid concept, we don't have a totally wrong product vision, and you leave the mutability and the adaptability to later stages of the development, where you have to go out and test it with people, customers, suppliers, distribution channels, where you will inevitably figure out that what you thought you knew was not correct. Mm-hmm. Mutability for me is a core driver behind this applicability of drift or not.
Mm-hmm. And now, as you were talking about, I was just thinking how this concept and many other concepts have been, to an extent, hijacked by other movements, but by different understandings. For example, it's so easy to fall into trap thinking that do it right the first time means that we have carefully pre-plan and simulate everything in advance. Yeah. But in practice, how it was done is mostly like Toyota style Kaizen, which is, a lot of iterations at the shop floor. You were doing it wrong a lot of times until you did it right. So kind of here, the first time might be a misnomer to an extent, because every time is the first time, like in that mindset, right? So it's not first time since we introduced the product, first time since we did this and that. And I don't think that many businesses are in a business of like launching rockets or something that you do, you develop for 10 years, you do it once and it can have catastrophic consequences. So a lot of businesses can afford to just, go out, hit the market, hit the new product, etc. But I would be of the position that at least thinking about, okay, how can we build in quality in our work, whatever that might mean, should be beneficial. But they should not get stuck in, hey, I want to be in my garage for 10 years figuring it out and then failing badly because of something you didn't even think about. Because succeeding, like we discussed before, succeeding like new products, new value proposition, new business models is so much more than kind of making quality product.
I think that the real thing that causes problems with the drift idea is that if you overdo it and if you apply drift on the wrong things, you end up pursuing efficiency, but totally eventually disregard effectiveness. So yes, you can be amazingly good at getting something done the first time because maybe you were lucky, or you put in a lot of effort that was business-wise not even justified because you did gold plating for months and months. You tried to figure it out before you took the first step to expose your idea or your concept to a customer. For months you polished it and you were up there in your brain thinking about how the perfect product would be, and then you go out and you realize, oh, so yes, you were very effective in your mind because it was all, let's say, which also big asterisk there, it was all efficient, but in the end what you did was very ineffective. The problem is that the cases I've seen drift being applied in product development have stemmed exactly from this mindset of having limited funds or having some kind of a cliff, be it a budget or being pressure from management, and feeling the pressure to also adhere to that, and then trying to get it right the first time. Usually, it's not even that you try to get it right the first time. Usually, it's that you push others to do it right the first time. It's like saying, "Oh, for God's sake, why don't you do it right the first time?" It's not. It's rarely applied as a driving force behind thinking clearly about the concept and figuring out the trade-offs and doing it properly so that you avoid the waste. Because also coming back to the quality movement, lean, TPS, and so on. In the end, the easiest way to go faster, regardless of whether it's right the first time or not, is to not do that which is useless or unnecessary. So to avoid preventable waste, so non-value adding activities and so on. And polishing something that has absolutely zero validation from the market, from customers, from suppliers, from technological visibility and so on, that is by definition doing something that is wasteful, because you're building on sands, what do you call it, castles on the sand. And the wave comes in with the first contact to reality, and it washes everything away. So yes, you were fantastic, you did it right the first time, but this didn't get you anywhere except to get insights from a super expensive experiment. Because then the best thing you can do is you say, oh well, we learned many things, what did we learn? So at least then you can get some learning.
So Isaac, I'm hearing a lot of things that could that could probably be used in future episodes. And just looking at the timer, so one thing that jumps out to me is how easy it's to fall into the trap of reaching local maximum or local optimum, kind of following this approach, especially if you're siloed in a division or even within a team. So there are definitely some things to critically think about, and I'm just thinking for future conversations, definitely that, and potentially also different forms of right, because that's also a question. What does it mean to
What
get
is it? Yeah.
right? Is it delivering product from division to division? Is that right? That's the problem as well. I wouldn't say it's so, but I will not open it now. I will not open it now.
It ties to what we have discussed. So we have touched upon those topics somehow, whereas like we're butterflies going from one flower to the next, because we always are tied we're very tight on time. But yeah, it has to do with we have come to this a few times. It's all about language when we mention those things. What is innovation? What is right? What is first time? Is there ever a first time? I mean, because I also don't like the idea of I said earlier that if it's a tangible process and so in a workshop, that then it's something that is more difficult to change. But in reality, from the moment that some guy who's working in a workshop starts to do this work, to the moment that he can reliably crank out good quality product, it is knowledge work. He has done thousands, if not millions, of corrections in his mind about the angles, about the speeds, and so on. So it is also a fake dilemma. This knowledge work, what is knowledge work, what is not knowledge work? Another big topic. But I think it's good to cut it here, because it's a huge topic and a very loved topic, I think, for both of us. And we'll see you in the next episode, where we'll discuss project failures. This is going to be another interesting one. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Goodbye.